Hey, it is Friday, must be the 4th. Yep, November 4th. And it's been a kind of different week around here, as I'm sure many of you who are following my daily escapades know. And first little trivial thing is there were three tunes right there that all had something in common. Obviously, maybe not obviously, of course not obviously, because I'm sure nobody recognized the first one. The second two, maybe. And they all had something in common with, of course, this one. And I will talk more about all of those pieces later. There's another one that I'm not going to go into right now. So I can think of five of these that all have something in common. And the other one is called Tears on the Moon. And we've talked about that. You know what? I might even have a lesson on it. I probably do. But what I do want to talk about is a couple things that happened on the forum. And then we'll talk about the new tune there, Remember. And some of the things that went into it, but also just kind of compositional technique in general. I want to talk about string theory and not particularly answering, but offering some thoughts on Chris's question about what the heck is happening with strings breaking. And I'm going to try to talk about my recording setup a little bit too, because I'm going to do all of that. It's on my list. Don't let me stop without it. So let's see. But the first thing I want to talk about, really quickly, just going through some of the new stuff that happened this week. We had, let's see. So we got to a fly on the wall with Fred working on Stormy. And I want to thank Max and Vanessa for really picking me up this week when I kind of checked out for 3 days, and I'll get more to that later. But Max put together a lesson on Mumford & Sons' I Will Wait, and Vanessa brings in Train with Drops of Jupiter. So we're keeping, and boy, is that really spreading out. Those are songs, of course, I don't want to say never gotten to, but they're pretty far. The list of songs that I want to be doing is still very long, and well, I've got a few under construction that all got derailed this week. But I want to thank those guys for that, and I hope everybody's enjoying playing a little Mumford and Train. Let's see, there was one more thing related to new stuff this week. Oh, then there was, of course, the acoustic snapshot of Remember. Well, that I will get to in a few minutes. First, I want to talk about or at least propose a theory as to why strings break. I haven't broken a string in a really long time, and many people break them when they're playing because they hit them too hard, and the strings are getting old. So typically, it takes an older string to break. Now, you can break new strings. That can happen. But even if you're tuning down, you got to remember that metal is metal. You bend it back and forth a few times, and it snaps. So it doesn't matter that it's going down. It just has reached its breaking point. But and Chris, I think you mentioned that the posts were clean. Now, this is really, really hard to tell, but it's really easy to get a burr on the edge of the hole in the post. And usually you can't feel it, or many times you can't feel it. And you do have to get in there with some really fine sandpaper or a jeweler's file and really round those edges. So if you break multiple strings and they all break at the post, that's a possibility. But I think you said you'd explored that, and that's not the case. Could be defective strings. Not too likely, but that could be it. That's about it as far as what can be causing it, other than up and down motion. If you take a string down to D and back up to E and down to E 10 times, that's enough. There's a good chance it's ready to go. Now, if the string is relatively new when that happens, that's still kind of rare. If you use really light strings, I wouldn't recommend using anything lighter than 12s for your first string, because otherwise you just don't get enough tone. You can't hit it hard. So if you want to get some beef out of the strings, if you want to get serious beef, use 13s. But if you want to get at least solid tone, use 12s. 12 to 53 or 54, depending on the brand. One of my students just tried these Santa Cruz strings. I have to look into this, but Santa Cruz Guitar Company has come out with a line of strings designed not to worry about gauge, but to worry about tension and making sure that the tension is matched and the ratio of the core to the wrap is optimal. String technology has gotten way out there, so I do have to hit up my buddy Richard at Santa Cruz and see if he'll send me some of those and I can test drive them and let you know more about them. But one of my students came in, Tim, with a relatively new guitar. Well, Santa Cruz guitar that was about 6 months old, and I guess when he bought the guitar they threw in some of the Santa Cruz strings, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, 2 more things to get to. I want to talk about my recording setup and why you may notice it's different on, well, there's a really obvious answer as to why the sound on generally acoustic snapshots is different. I go to a little bit more trouble to record the audio separately. As a matter of fact, I'm doing that right now. So I've got this little this Zoom Q8 sitting right here that is really picking up the audio that tends to, first of all, is much better audio than I can get from the camera, but it's also much closer to me, so it gets much less room noise and outside noise. There's some hammering going on down the street right now. Beautiful day here in Northern California. We're finally back to what we love, 70s weather in November, and we had a ton of rain over the last couple weeks too. So it's been great being here. Sorry, had to divert into something I've been working on. And I keep getting sidetracked and delayed because of lots of other things that I'm getting back to. But the usual setup is camera, sometimes 2. When I do the acoustic snapshots, I'll frequently set up 2 cameras. As a matter of fact, I did for Remember, and then just decided I'm not going to use this. I don't need this other angle in here. I'm just staying with the straight shot. Wasn't all that happy with the angle I got and other stuff, so just went with the one camera, but the audio from the Q8, and then something I really have never done is bothered to add any reverb to the audio, but I sometimes do that on the acoustic snapshots. So that's the exposed version of why this one sounded a little bit better than even this news will. So I'm going to do this with the audio here from the Q8, but I'm not going to add any reverb to it. So when you hear me playing, it's just dry. Maybe I'll add it. It doesn't really take up that much more time. But what I do want to talk about is the compositional, not so much, well, maybe technique, but many songs that I've written I sat down and decided I wanted to write a song. Back to the Drawing Board is one of them. Let's see if I can remember it now. There we go, something like that. That was a piece I wrote back in early 1999, getting kind of prepping for this concert coming up with John Renborn, the first show that I did with him in May of 1999. And whereas I had really not done much since about 1985. Then, of course, I came out with, not of course, I should assume that most people listening to this don't have my whole musical history down. But so for about those 15 years, from 85 when I wrote a lot of songs, wow, coincidentally, that was the year I got married. I must have stopped playing the guitar or started playing much less after in 1985. So I had a lot of pieces together though by then. Stuff like this. This was 82, but wait a minute. during that period of time, 82 to 85, I was writing a lot of pieces. Came up with these little instrumentals. They're all instrumentals. This is getting to be too way long story. I didn't mean to go all the way back to like 30 years ago. But, so anyway, getting back to the point. I wrote back to the drawing board because I felt motivated to write some new songs for this show coming up with my musical idol and mentor. And so, and the first one was called Back to the Drawing Board because it was the first piece I'd written in 14 years. Almost 15 probably. 14, 15. And so then put together a couple of others, one of which became the title of an album once I finished the show with John, where I had 3 new pieces, SOS, On the Horizon, and I believe SOS was new, it must have been. And the one I just played there, Back to the Drawing Board. And then that weekend, one of the more mystical ways kind of writing a song, where I sat down on Sunday of Mother's Day. It was Mother's Day in May. May must have been like the 10th or so, 10th or 11th, and just grabbed my father-in-law's guitar, who had recently passed away. And for many hours, this was all the guitar would play. So that song sort of materialized, I felt like, out of my control. So that happens sometimes too. Other times, I kind of go into a zone, I guess, and over a week or two, we'll churn out 3 or 4 new songs. This happened a lot over the next couple of years. So this sort of got jump-started with the pieces from 1999, threw together the 4 new songs and 6 or 7 old pieces that I'd written many years before, and put out an album, On the Horizon. And then it's like the floodgates opened. And over the next couple of years, just wrote a pile of songs that became the songs on Cobble Creek and El Dorado that came out over the next 2 or 3 years, I guess. I'm not sure. I can't remember all the dates now. El Dorado was probably 2003 and Cobble Creek probably 2001, just kind of guessing. But and that's how where Rosa May came from and many of those. But whenever I would go into like serious composing mode, it would be a little zombie-like. I was not really in touch with the rest of the world very well. I would sleep very little, 3 or 4 hours a night. I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and start and just get working, and nothing else would get done except I would get through some of my lessons. But it's like I was somewhere else. And earlier this week, twice I got up really early and I wasn't really quite sure what was going on. Really early meaning 4 to 4:30, and which is an hour or so earlier than usual. And Tuesday morning was the second of those, and kind of grabbed the guitar, and the guitar had this in it. I figured, I have to run off and do these errands, and I grabbed my phone and put it down and recorded just a little rough take of the first little phrase, because I said, this one is going to be a keeper. So for the next 3 days, the next 2 days, I kind of just kept playing it and experimenting with different things. But boy, I really don't feel like I had much to do with that piece. And the second part, the second part was really. Anyway, and so that kind of went on, and it was really it was done over a few hours' time. And then just yesterday afternoon, I thought, I gotta wrap this thing up, and came in here and ran through it. I had no idea how smoothly it would go, but it went relatively smoothly, I thought. I think there was only 1 or 2 The song is going to have some improvised areas or variations, and so that's what's about to happen there. And there were a couple little things there that were experimental. Decide what word you're gonna say, then where the accents go. Wait, let me go back to grammar, to English. Okay. All right, now let me tell you a little bit more about the song. Oh, and the 3 I played at the beginning are all songs that were inspired or at least kind of dedicated to friends and family that we lost unexpectedly. And that's sort of what became the case with this song, as I had really been spending a lot of time thinking about our friend Julia, who I'll spare you the story, but it's not pretty. And so as I was playing this, it definitely got me thinking about her a lot. But it also, I had words forming in my mind, and what was really, and that's where I'm sort of going with this is totally open to anybody writing lyrics about it. And what I really was feeling like it was not a song written about a specific person as much as how our human psyche, I guess, oh man, I did not come here to talk philosophy, but it looks like it's going to happen, is memories and things really do a lot for getting us through some rough times. And so it's always amazing that we can go back to other times and places in our imagination or in our memory and change how we're feeling about what's going on right now, going back to a better place. And so even though the song has tinges of melancholy, and that's because it's wistful and mournful, kind of, the opening melody, and lands on a B minor chord. But the whole little phrase lightens up, and it's getting brighter, and ends on a D chord. Well, we can live through that again. Section. A pedal point in the bass. To a little surprise. A lot of it revolves around an E minor chord with an A in the melody, a little bit of an open-ended before it resolves back to our A7, and now we're set to hear the opening theme again. With a little different ending, a more open-ended ending again, where it never resolves. Another time around where it kind of resolves. With the D and the E. That's pretty much the whole A section. Then there was the whole main, part A, I guess. But that's sort of what I was envisioning as that, and as I was putting that together. But it really could be about anything. That's just it. It doesn't. I don't see it being about a person as much as any direction you want to take it. So that's just it. The lyric writing bell has rung, and anybody that would like to add some lyrics to this, I would love to see them. And I don't know that I will ever sing it necessarily, because I'm pretty fond of it as an instrumental, but there are songs like Papa's Guitar that has lyrics and it gets sung. So the other songs, by the way, I don't think I mentioned what they all were to wrap up something that I started a long time ago. This has gone on way longer than I planned, but hopefully you found something valuable in here. And that is the first one, the one with the capo at the 3rd fret. It's probably the most obscure, because I doubt if many people out there have my album Yesterday's News. But if you do, you know that piece. It's called Sweet Child. How's it go? I don't think I can remember the whole thing. I will have to brush up on this. that's from 1985, and well, I'll save all the dedications for later. I'm sure you've all figured out who Papa's Guitars is about, but On the Horizon and Tears on the Moon and Now Remember are all kind of cut from the same cloth, and I hope you enjoy them. And I think I need to stop talking and go back to playing the guitar today. But now I think I've got all this off my chest, and I can get back to work on the little things that are hanging. Hopefully next week we'll finish up Bicycle Tune and have a few more cool pieces. But that is it. On to the weekend. Back next week.